prospering without fear. The wisdom of Ecclesiastes that transformed millionaires. I will begin with a statement that might sound preposterous. Poverty, in the majority of cases, is not the work of fate, but an unconscious choice. Yes, you heard me correctly. It is not the economy, it is not the crisis, it is not bad luck. It is the programming of your own mind. Now you will say to me, "But Napoleon, how could I have chosen scarcity if I never wanted to live this way?" And I answer, you did not choose it consciously, but your mind was trained from an early age to believe lies about money, life, and even about God. To everything there is a season, and a time for every purpose under heaven. I repeat this because it is the key that very few truly comprehend. It is not an invitation to passive waiting. It is an instruction to synchronize your mind with the rhythms of life. I learned this while traveling the roads of interviews, observing men and women who built empires, and also those who were lost because they did not understand the right time to plant and to harvest. What differentiates those who prosper from those who live on the wheel of starting and restarting is not just luck. It is the preparation of the mind to recognize and seize the moment when it arrives. Have you ever stopped to listen to what your mind repeats to you every day? That little voice that says, "I am not capable. This is for better people." Or, "Money causes problems." The subconscious mind works 24 hours a day, filtering signals and confirming beliefs. When this programming is soaked in scarcity, everything conspires to prove that scarcity is true, and vice versa. So, the first practical step is to take responsibility for this internal software. You can deliberately update your thoughts. I will be practical, as I always have been. Imagine that your mind is a field. If you want to harvest tomatoes, it is useless to complain that the field yields nothing while you plant cassava and ignore irrigation. The wise farmer studies the seasons, prepares the soil, chooses the seeds, and plants at the appropriate moment. In the real world, this translates into concrete actions that anyone can start applying today without needing magic. First exercise, daily mental cleansing. For 7 days, every morning, you will spend 10 minutes in silence identifying the first limiting belief that appears when you think about money. Write it down. Then write a practical affirmation, for example, "I deserve to be paid fairly for the value I deliver." Repeat this affirmation with conviction for 3 minutes. Does it seem simple? That is exactly where the power lies. Repetition builds a new neural habit. Neuroplasticity is not a fancy word. It is a real mechanism. Repeated thoughts create pathways in the brain and change behavior. Second exercise, informational diet. Stop consuming news and conversations that drain your confidence in the hours before your sleep or your work. Swap 30 minutes of complaining for 30 minutes of practical learning. A podcast about finance, an article on basic management, a free class. Small adjustments in mental input transform the quality of the output of your actions. Third exercise, planning in seasons. Divide your next 6 months into clearly defined phases. Preparation phase, study, purposeful saving, network of contacts. Execution phase, launching a product, opening a micro business, applying for better vacancies. Adjustment phase, correcting processes, reinvesting profits. For the person who works fixed hours and dreams of having their own business, this can mean 3 months studying and saving 10% of the salary for initial capital, 2 months testing a product on nights and weekends, 1 month of staggered launch. It is not an instant guarantee, but it is synchronizing action with the right time, planting with intention, cultivating with persistence, harvesting with strategy. And what about fear? It will appear. What if I fail? What if I lose the little I have? These questions are legitimate, but look, most of our worst-case scenarios never happen. What happens is that fear paralyzes, and the paralysis is what guarantees the worst result. So transform fear into an ally. Write down the worst plausible consequence and plan a response to it. If the worst consequence is losing X, what is your plan to minimize that loss? Having a plan reduces panic and amplifies the courage to act at the right time. Let me tell you a real episode from my life that illustrates this, and that perhaps you will recognize as your own mirror. I was young, spending my few nights seeking stories, when a man told me he wanted me to study success, full stop. He tasked me with discovering the habits and principles of those who achieve great results. That mission did not come with perfect financial conditions. It came with a deadline, expectation, and a monumental responsibility. I could have said, I will wait to study more, to save more money, to find a partner. Instead, I chose to prepare my mind and act immediately. I eliminated mental distractions, wrote clear goals, organized interviews, gathered a small network of collaborators, and only then, at the right time, did I go to harvest the results that paved my work. What I want you to feel now is not pity for my struggle, but courage. I did not have all the external conditions at the start, but I decided to prepare my mind as if the right moment had already arrived, and that made the right moment appear. Feel the courage I felt that day. Let it direct you. If you want to apply this practically tomorrow, here is a roadmap that works for most people. Pause the first half an hour of the morning, or at night, if that is your time, for 3 actions. 1. Short, directed reading, 10 minutes. 2. Writing your specific goal for the day, 5 minutes. 3. Tangible action, even small, that brings you closer to the goal, 15 minutes. Do this for 21 days. This cycle creates the discipline that prepares your mind to recognize and seize opportunities when they arrive. You might be thinking, this is boring, Professor Hill. I want quick results. I know. But the illusion of the shortcut is what keeps people planting and waiting for rains that will not come. The wisdom that Solomon revives in Ecclesiastes does not promise shortcuts. It promises synchronization, knowing when to prepare, when to plant, when to water, and when to harvest. And that synchronization begins inside you, in the daily attention to what you think, read, and do. Finally, an immediate challenge. Today, before sleeping, write a clear financial goal and a 3-step plan for the next month. Tomorrow morning, execute the first step. Repeating this daily for 7 days is preparing your mind for the right time. And when the moment to act arrives, you will no longer be unprepared. You will be ready to harvest. The greatest enemy of prosperity is not the lack of opportunities, nor the injustice of the system, nor even the scarcity of resources. The greatest enemy is invisible. It is called fear. Fear is the most skillful thief in human history. It does not invade your house through the window. It settles in your heart. It does not steal your money directly. It first steals your initiative, your courage, your vision of the future. And when that happens, the money never arrives or slips through your fingers like fine sand. How many times have you failed to make an important decision because you thought, what if I fail? What if I lose everything? What if they laugh at me? These questions are common, but have you stopped to reflect on how, most of the time, they never come true? Modern research in economic psychology shows that more than 85% of people's financial worries never become reality. And yet, billions of people spend their lives reacting to fear as if it were an inevitable fact. I myself, in my career, have seen men of extraordinary talent succumb because of this silent enemy. I once interviewed a brilliant young man, a creative engineer, who had developed a solution to drastically reduce production costs in factories. His project could have transformed entire industries. But the fear of being rejected made him keep the idea in a drawer for years. When he finally mustered the courage, others had already developed something similar, and he limited himself to being an underpaid employee of companies that used the same technology he could have patented. Can you imagine the pain of seeing the world use an idea that could have been yours, but which fear did not allow to flourish? On the other side, Look at examples of men who overcame fear with faith. George Muller, a German Christian from the 19th century, did not allow the fear of lack of money to paralyze him. He cared for more than 10,000 orphans throughout his life without ever directly asking anyone for resources. How did he succeed? He applied spiritual principles, relied on a clear vision, and, above all, refused to be enslaved by the fear of scarcity. Even today, his work remains as proof that faith in action is more powerful than any insecurity. But allow me to be honest with you, I also faced fear. When I started writing Think and Grow Rich, many told me that my ideas would be ridiculed, that no one would believe that the mind can create wealth. I sat at the table with a pile of notes from the interviews I did with men like Carnegie, Edison, and Ford, and heard a voice inside me. What if you are wasting your life? What if no one takes this seriously? That night was long. But instead of paralyzing me, I made a choice to turn fear into fuel. I wrote even more, with even greater conviction. The result? A book that traveled the world, helped millions, and remains alive to this day. And this is what I want you to understand. Fear will never disappear. It will appear every time you think about taking a step beyond your comfort zone. The difference is how you react to it. Will you let it paralyze your life, or will you use it as a sign that you are on the right path? Now I ask you a direct question. How many times have you failed to invest in yourself because fear said, "It is not time"? How many opportunities have you seen pass by because you were worried about what others would say? If you recognize this, know that you are not alone. Most people live like this, but you do not need to continue living like this. Do this exercise with me. Today, write down on a sheet of paper the biggest financial fear you carry. Then, below it, write 3 simple actions you can take to face it head-on. It does not have to be anything grandiose. It can be learning something new, talking to someone you trust, or even opening a small savings account directed at a goal. The simple act of confronting fear in writing already begins to pull it out of the darkness and weakens the power it has over you. And remember, life does not reward those who flee from fear, but those who face it with clarity, faith, and action. Fear wants to be the owner of your life, but you can turn it into your servant. Wishing is not enough. You can spend your whole life saying, "I want to be rich, I want to be happy, I want a better life," and stay in the same place. Because desire, without direction, is like wind on the high seas. It blows in all directions, but it does not lead anywhere. What really opens doors is to find purpose. And this is what most people never have the courage to face head-on. Ecclesiastes reminds us that there is a time to plant and a time to harvest. But only those who plant with clear intention harvest. Think with me. How many people do you know who say, "I want to change my life," but never stop to write exactly what that life should be like, when it will happen, and why? The truth is that a large part of the population is living on autopilot, with vague goals, without a plan, without a purpose. And the consequence of this is simple. If you do not define your destination, any path will do. Current research shows something impressive. People who write down their goals have 42% more chances of achieving them than those who only keep wishes in their mind. This is not magic, it is science. When you write a goal with clarity, your subconscious mind begins to work in its favor, filtering information, connecting opportunities, and creating directed energy. But allow me to show you a powerful contrast. Look at the case of Vincent van Gogh, a brilliant artist who created works that today are worth millions of pounds. But in life, he did not have a defined purpose in relation to money. He did not know how to organize his gifts to generate prosperity. He lived tormented, died poor and forgotten. The talent was there, but without direction, the destiny was lost. Compare this with men who were not necessarily more talented, but who knew exactly what they wanted, like Henry Ford. He did not just desire to manufacture automobiles, He had a defined purpose: to put the car within reach of the middle class. And the whole world changed because he knew what he wanted. Now allow me to open my heart. There was a moment when I myself had to face this difference between desiring and having purpose. For years, I desired to be successful as a writer. Empty desire. Nothing happened. But everything changed when I defined my greater purpose: to organize and disseminate the philosophy of success in a language that anyone could understand and apply. That day, something inside me ignited. It was no longer a vague dream. It was a plan. I knew the what, the when, and the how. And this attracted the interviews, the collaborators, and even the critics who, without realizing it, propelled me even further. And I want you to reflect with me now. Do you have a desire or a purpose? Have you caught yourself daydreaming, imagining a different life, but never putting it on paper? Well, here is my challenge. Today, before sleeping, write 3 things on a sheet of paper. First, what you want to achieve specifically. Second, in how much time. Third, why. This is important to you. Just 3 sentences. Do this for 7 consecutive nights. I guarantee that your mind will begin to see paths that were previously invisible. Defined purpose is like a lighthouse. It does not remove the storms from the sea, but it shows where to row even in the midst of them. Without that lighthouse, you can have talent, energy, even money, but you will continue to go around in circles. With it, every decision gains clarity, every obstacle becomes a step, every fear becomes smaller than your vision. So, I ask you, are you willing to transform your desires into purpose? Or will you continue living like so many who wish, and never realize? The choice is yours. Have you noticed how many people live as if there is always a tomorrow to start? Tomorrow they will study. Tomorrow they will save. Tomorrow they will act. But Ecclesiastes warns us, there is a time to complain and a time to act, a time to prepare and a time to execute. The problem is that most people get used to living eternally in the time of complaint, postponing real life. I tell you, the time for transformation is never tomorrow. It is now. It has always been now. Every time you postpone, you strengthen the mental pattern that keeps you trapped in scarcity. How many times have you repeated phrases like, "When I have more money, I will start. When things get better, I will change. When the crisis passes, I will invest in myself"? The truth is that, if you do not act with what you have today, the perfect time will never arrive. I will tell you something that happened to me, which I carry as one of the hardest and most valuable lessons of my life. There was a period when I was exhausted, with so many notes and interviews accumulated that I seriously considered stopping writing. I told myself, maybe it is not the right time. Maybe I need to wait for better conditions. That night, I challenged myself. Write just 1 page, just today. I wrote. The next day, another page. That simple choice became the seed of one of the most important chapters of my entire work. Do you know what I learned? The time for action never arrives wrapped in perfection. It arrives disguised as small decisions you can make now. And here is my challenge for you. During the next 7 days, every morning, write 1 simple and objective action on a piece of paper that brings you closer to your purpose. Just 1. At the end of the week, you will have taken 7 real steps. Perhaps small, but real. And when you look back, you will realize that you have moved out of inertia and into movement. Ask yourself, what time are you choosing to live today? The time to complain or the time to act? The time to prepare or the time to execute? Because life does not wait. That shelved project, that idea you have carried for years, that dream that insists on knocking at your door, all of them are begging you to recognize that the time is now. And if you still have doubts, remember this: there will always be problems, crises, and obstacles. But those who learn to act in the middle of the storm harvest when the sun shines again. Those who wait for the perfect calm never set sail. The big question is, will you keep waiting for the perfect tide, or will you cast your net now, even if the wind seems contrary? Because the opportunity for your transformation may be emerging at this very moment you are listening to me. If there is one point you should keep in your heart, it is this: there is no financial curse. There is no inevitable destiny of scarcity. What exists is the decision to align your mind with the right times of life. When you understand that there is a time to plant, a time to harvest, a time to prepare, and a time to act, then you begin to live consciously, without fear, with clarity and purpose. And if this understanding has already opened your eyes today, imagine what will happen when you climb one more step in the next video that is appearing on the screen. There you will deepen your wisdom even further, becoming at least 1% better than you are now. And that 1% accumulated, day after day, is what transforms entire destinies. I thank you for being here with me. If this content made a difference for you, consider supporting the channel with a thanks, and become part of our exclusive community, where you will have priority in new videos and can walk side by side with me on this journey of evolution. I await you in the next video. Click now, climb one more step, and continue with me on the path of wisdom and prosperity.